You win.
Thanks.
Good job, girl.
Thank you.
It's a big deal. Welcome back to American Traddiction, a journey of breaking carb addiction. So, we've made it 12 weeks. You've done great. This is our final episode before our live 6-month update, which will be premiering on this channel next week.
I'm so excited to see my future self.
Yes, right?
Can't wait.
But today we look at the measurements that made us so anxious that first week, and hopefully we'll see some improvement. Watch till the end and you'll get to be introduced to Michelle's newest member of their family.
Well, I think that's big, breaking the cycle. That's what you're doing. That was that moment that I said, that's what addiction looks like. To be able to just to say, okay, it's in his diet and we may not even need to visit for medicine, that was huge.
All right, back to something that made us very anxious the first time around. And I say us because it was just as hard for me to watch how hard it was for you as it was for you to say, oh Lord, what am I doing?
Oh,
What
yeah.
did I agree to?
Exactly.
I recall the door was your favorite part of that, saying just that way, please.
Yeah, there's one right here too.
So as we measure this, the purpose of looking at waist circumference, neck circumference, and then body mass index is these measurements do matter. Much like we talked about last time, it's easy to avoid the conversation because the reality stays hidden. I really enjoy the distance from the numbers by using the ribbons because it's not about the numbers, it's that you're improving. And the numbers become valuable, but especially at the beginning, we're just looking for progress. And especially in that ketogenic journey, the plateaus that happen for folks, if they're measuring these other circumferences like neck and waist, I'm amazed that even though the scale didn't change, how much can be happening in those metrics. So I think it's a great idea to gather them and then recheck them. All right, let's look. So grab the neck one. 1 knot was the beginning, 2 knots was the end. Oh my gosh.
I'm gonna mark that.
Yeah, if I go right there, right here. So, all right, so the first time we did this, her neck circumference was just under 15 inches. Now, at 12 weeks later, we are at 14¼ inches, which is a clear improvement for 12 weeks. But in 12 weeks, to change the neck circumference at all is, first of all, congratulations. All right, so next we are going to do the almost infamous moment of measuring her waist.
Yep.
Okay,
Okay.
there you go.
Good?
All right, yep. Look at that. So we started out with just at 41½ inches for waist. At about the halfway mark, she was at 40 inches, had lost 1.5 inches, and she is at 38 inches at 12 weeks. Excellent job. So cool. Look at you. All right, so we got the neck, we've got the waist, and now let's step on the scale.
Okay.
Body mass index.
We'll show.
Whoa, that was better than we were planning on. Okay, so that's a moment.
It's a moment.
And we did not have tears,
No.
so that's good.
I'll take it.
Right? So looking at that, what were your expectations? Like when we started out, I remember you being really nervous about even just saying out loud what you wanted or could I get there? So based on where your expectations were, like, talk about that.
I think they changed throughout the 12 weeks, right?
Okay. Yes, that's good.
So expectations, when I hit the 190 mark and I stayed there for like 2.5 weeks, I was like, okay, this is not going where it's supposed to.
Right?
And then all of a sudden, when I hit the 180s, it just has kind of gone really fast.
Yeah.
So it's just that whole ebb and flow of your body getting used to what you're doing. You change it up a little bit, you stress it,
Right.
and then you surprise it. And so it's really good.
Yeah.
It's encouraging, you know. And the big thing for me is still just not to step on that every day.
Very good.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's other ways to measure happiness besides that dang thing.
That's
But it is important for longevity and for the example to your family. And if you look at the step that will require Your example for your mom, I also think that that season isn't here yet, but when it comes, it will be important that you said, nope, here's what I did then.
Yeah.
So as you look, how long has it been since you've hit this magical weight number for how many years?
Oh, goodness. Wow. 13 plus years, I'm sure. 'Cause,
Pre-pregnancy?
Yeah, pre-Jace.
Oh, and that third baby, I swear, hormones are never the same.
They're not, no.
Maybe we're more tired and we push harder and we're trying to
More gray hair.
Yes.
I don't know.
All right, you win.
Thanks.
Good job, girl.
Thank you.
It's a big deal. I'm super proud. So, any idea what your expectations would be for the next 3 months?
I would like to hit 150, but that's pretty.
Still, I think if you can find a rhythm that fits and feels good, it's not impossible. So, we'll see.
We'll see.
Next week. All right, so one of your other goals was to improve your health, and one of the longest struggles that kept you going to the doctor for your prescription was your blood pressure. 12 weeks. What's the outcome of your blood pressure?
And my blood pressure's been doing well. 130s, usually over 70s is what I'm seeing. Sometimes I'll see an occasional 82 or 83, and I'm off all of my blood pressure meds, both of them.
Off all blood pressure meds. Like, that's a huge deal. As a nurse, did you think that was possible?
I thought it could be possible, but seeing that both of my parents are now on blood pressure medicine, I was thinking, oh, this might just be genetics and weight, and it may be able to get off one, possibly, probably not two. So yeah,
it's amazing to me when people come in saying this is just what my genetics said I was supposed to have, and then to explain, yeah, there's genetics involved in a lot of health issues, but they are laying on the bed of your metabolism. So it's been like a month since you've been off.
It has been, yeah.
That's such freedom.
Yes, because I was getting text yesterday from my pharmacy back in Tennessee saying, it's time to pick up your, prescriptions. And I was like, yeah, I don't need that.
When?
Yeah, thanks so.
Yeah. Let's see how that thumbprint's doing.
Oh, yeah.
All right, so I'm going to do some teaching while we do this again. So again, we're pushing right on the shin. And when you push hard enough to blanch the blood in your thumb area as you push, and then you lift up, wow, that's way better than it was.
It is better. It's still there, of course, but it is way better.
But man, they have you do this in medical school. So you close your eyes and you run your finger over this for like 15 seconds and say, can you feel the indent? And man, I could barely feel it. You're supposed to give it a 1, 2, or a 3. I'd give it like a half because it's just barely measurable. So, and I probably would have given you a 2 the first time we did it.
Yeah, it was significant.
Oh, another score.
Yeah.
All right, I want to ask an easy question at 12 weeks because there's a lot of tough questions I could ask. You moved to the farm, to a little town of population 700 or 800, from the world you knew to the world that's unfamiliar, in the wintertime. How has life on the farm been?
Life on the farm has been a lot different, a lot slower in pace, I would say, but it's been nice. There's definitely upsides. Now, you feel the pain of isolation a little more, especially with, it's a little harder to get out and meet people because there's not a lot of opportunity for that.
Yeah, the community square is called the grocery store.
Yes.
Or the church.
Yeah.
But also, as you looked at making a huge change the way you ate, and you also coupled that with this change in your environment, do you think, relate to that, how did that fit in?
In a lot of ways, to me, it made it easier because it was an all new slate. Okay, this is what we're going to do, and this is how we're going to do it, and this is where we're going to do it.
Right.
So it was easier to break some habits. Now, as far as with food habits, you just don't bring them in the house. You don't allow for those, oh, well, this is for so-and-so, or, everybody is on board and everybody is cohesiveness.
Right.
Yeah.
I think the other part that we did well by accident almost was that you and your son, you and your youngest son started this together without the whole family. Like lifting everybody at once into the change, I think would have been kind of an extreme emotional burden. But changing the two of you and then watching your own personal benefits, his personal benefits, and then adding the others in as they kind of stumbled at first like everybody does, but you had a little better footing by that spot, so you could be a good guide for the past 5 weeks, you've added the metabolic stress of fasting.
Yes.
And we've even pushed you to 72 hours, and you succeeded.
Yeah.
We did it. And this is actually the end of your second 72-hour fast. You
Yes,
had some
it is.
traveling in there, so 48 and then a 36, and just did what you could accommodate with all the other parts of life, which is super important for saying just because you hit 72 hours once doesn't mean you're going to do it again. It's a skill. You learn to hit a skill, and then sometimes you don't hit a skill.
Right.
So at the end of the second 72-hour fast, how do you feel?
I feel great. I really do. It is such a mental thing, and it's that first day, and for me it's mental. It's like you feel like a child in a lot of ways because your body's like, I want that. Why can't I? It's this ridiculous argument going on in your head. So you have to step outside of that. You have to do, get out of the kitchen, get out of the house,
Right.
whatever you need to do to just think about something else.
Right. So we started out 12 weeks ago, and we talked about your why. We said, yep, she wants to look better in her clothes, and her wardrobe has dramatically shifted. I saw the pile of those clothes don't fit anymore.
So,
That's a great accomplishment, especially as that when people put on weight, there becomes a ceiling where they say, I'll just never get back to what my dream was.
Mhm.
And I think that restoration of hope as you inch down on sizes and you throw away old clothes, it's this victory that sometimes is very private, but when you sign up for a documentary, it's now public.
yeah, very.
So as you look though, that why, we talked about, medical reasons are easy to pick. We talked about how your mom's health has some stresses that you want to be an example for. But I think the real underlying, maybe it's realization for both of us, was how much your habits and traditions were very much part of your soul, like Southern this, and that usually this was around food, and how those traditions became toxic to your health. And you have the pleasure or pain of heading back after several weeks and looking around a family who is just riddled with health problems and being on several prescriptions, and those were headed for your children if you didn't identify the problem and then shift your leadership.
Yeah.
And I just want to say it is a brave moment for a mother to say, uh-oh, they're following me. And then to say, you can't tell them what to do. You have to change your choices, and then the little ducklings will follow, even when they're teenagers.
That's great.
But that process of saying, oh, this is my problem that I am passing on to my children.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that, our title has turned into American Traddiction because that addiction to the food was something I don't think either of us were willing to say in the presence of your family, or even in your presence, like, oh, it's not an addiction.
Right.
But that realization was, oh, no. When I feel like that 2-year-old, carbs are the best answer.
Yeah, I mean, really, that's so true. And we do what we've already been taught, right? So I grew up with, cornbread and just all the Southern food, so to speak, and that's what they grew up with. So
Right.
we just carry on what we've learned. And so until you really start to look around at the people you care about and people, your friends, just acquaintances, and go, okay, something is not working here. Something is wrong, generally wrong with what we're putting in our bodies. Because if you look at people overweight, it's becoming a huge health issue in our nation.
Amen.
And so there's a lot to be said for that. And so to come to the realization, okay, yes, they are watching me way more than I ever give them credit. Even at, because you think that when they're little, right? And then as they age, they're not going to pay any attention to me. That's so not true, because they do what we do.
Mm-hmm. Right. And your realization that the food behavior was this pathologic level was, it really strikes home to me when I'm coaching somebody through an addictive recovery. One of the first questions I ask is, when did this behavior start? Mm-hmm. And if their brain is growing and they're used to the dopamine from sex, drugs, rock and roll, nicotine, whatever they choose to be addicted to, that release from pulling something from the outside of their body, inside their body, if they start it around puberty, I know it's going to be a tough case to recover from. They need lots of support. They need lots of mental assistance, lots of medical assistance. And so then you transfer that to a 12-year-old brain growing, and his addiction and our addiction when we grew up was this carb food, this comfort food. Mm-hmm. So there comes a point when I'm helping an alcoholic that I say, you have to choose the friends or the booze. I mean, the booze, if it's going to go and those friends are where you do that, you have to set the separation. And I find when I ask that conversation to show up with food, it's like they say, well, I have to divorce everyone I know.
Yeah.
And so I really think the privilege of escaping to the sacred home of the farm is really this, I mean, it's a gift where you say, okay, heal you. And when that center becomes, again, rooted to your soul, this is okay to say, I get that you comforted me with food and you didn't know any better, but I'm not going to do that to the next generation. I'm going to find a different path. And it begins with your own choices. Mm-hmm. And it's hard. Relapse is real.
It is.
Yeah. So if you had to say, where do you think you live? And be willing to say a number, but then kind of quantify.
Oh, yeah, sure. So when I'm not, like I've been fasting, but when I'm not fasting, mm-hmm. not in a fasting state, I live usually right here at 6.
Okay.
16 and 8. Or usually, actually, no, I've kind of altered this for me, and I do more of a 20 and 4. And I find when I do the 20 and 4, mm-hmm. I have found that my blood sugars are better in the morning the earlier in the day that I eat. Mm-hmm. Like I was doing 12, between the hours of noon and 4 to try to do that supper time with everybody. And there's been a couple days though I'm like, I just want breakfast. Breakfast just sounds good. So I'll start at 10 and stop at 2. And my blood sugar, and you wouldn't think 2 hours make a difference, but that is and I think you hit on this really well in the Keto Continuum course online, the Consistently Keto, is you learn, when you start checking your numbers and how you can kind of learn your own chemistry, because we're all different.
Right.
And you have to find what works for your body. So taking that course and really learning how to study myself has been a huge help.
Right. I think people say, what's your best advice for this? I'm like, well, here's the key. You don't need a physician to do this. But you do need some pretty good education on how to crack the code for you.
Yeah, it's okay, baby. It's okay. Good girl. Good girl.
So tell me about the entrance of just the discussions with your mom and where she's at in her journey in reference to how your why has started out with her as a major focus, and now you're looking towards that inner circle inside your home a little more.
Absolutely. Definitely I thought she would be a little more ready to do it. The high fat, she's not there. So basically, and she says, I can't believe apples are not good for you. So that's kind of the mindset. Mm-hmm. And it's still there. So I just, it's slow and steady.
Right.
Conversation and just, try to show the benefit. Mm-hmm. And go from there. She's still definitely a big part of.
Yeah, otherwise.
Hopefully that she'll see, okay, this is beneficial, and I can do this too. I can incorporate this into my life. It would be a lot harder for her unless she can get Dad on it, because now at the house I was going through the cabinets and I'm like, oh, it's honey buns and Mom doesn't eat that, but the chips, and there's just lots of different things that just really need.
Same thing. I mean, I think anybody on this journey can remember a moment where you're like, I just want to do what I used to do. And if you have to do what you used to do by getting in the car, going to the grocery store and buying it, mm-hmm. there's a lot more chance you're not going to do it. Yeah. That home environment becomes critical.
Yeah, it does. It's a big deal. That support system is a big deal. So kind of as this journey has, gone on for me, watching the benefit of my son, which I just never would have thought. Not possible, but really we just thought it was more of a hyperactivity that needed medicine.
Right. Genetics must be in play. It must be him genetically, right?
Just to be able to change the sugar intake and to notice that big of a difference. It's just really hard to put into words. Unless you saw him before and you see him now, the people who, have seen him, and watched it happen. They're like, oh my goodness, yes.
Look at that.
Yeah, exactly. Whoa, did you see that? We just wish everybody could see what a change it's been for him. It's huge.
Wow.
Yeah.
I mean, you just changed the course of his life. That's exactly right, because all things change when they start on meds, and they're appropriate. But if I could tell parents where that critical moment of being the strong, authoritative, kind parent is, no, we can see what's best for you. Let's move in this direction. The whole family immerses, and out the other side comes a different person. Yeah.
I can't even tell the difference with Madison.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah. Her motivation has changed in a good way.
It's so good.
Yeah. And you can see that, her workouts, she's back at it and she feels better. That's just the bottom line. I can tell that she feels better. When she feels better, it shows outwardly as much as inwardly.
And I think, again, it's like the family unit becomes, yep, there's genetics, but there's this culture. And when you soothe when I look at the toughest addictions to treat, it's when they're addicted during puberty. So if they start drinking at 13, if they start smoking at 13, if they're on marijuana at 13, that puberty brain, as it develops dependent on the external source, well, what 13-year-old isn't eating carb? You're like, oh, mom's like this. Like, oh, we gotta fix this.
Yeah.
Right?
We started this series using Michelle's story to share the process of improving health and losing weight with the keto continuum. The importance of food addiction became the central message. If you've made it this far, you win.
Come talk to me and Dr. Boz live next week for our 6-month update.